All right, Jen, my favorite stories to hear are that of franchise owners, because I'm always impressed with just how risky it was for you to make the decision to go into business for yourself, not by yourself. And I love the backstories behind it. And when I clicked on your LinkedIn, there's not a ton of backdrop on there because you've been in Right at Home for now almost 10 years. So I'm very excited for a conversation. The first question scripted, everything else we go off the cuff. But how did you accidentally fall into franchising? What's your franchise backstory?
It's probably a little different than ones you've heard before. Never thought about it. It was not on my radar. I literally fell into it because my story is I stayed home with my kids for 19 years when they were born. It was never my plan to be a stay-at-home mother, but then I had kids and I didn't care about anything else except staying home with the babies. So I was home for almost 18 years with my kids. And then, of course, they were growing up and not needing me and wanting me to get out of their business. And I started trying to decide kind of what was going to be the next phase of my life. And consequently, or I should say coincidentally, at that time, my grandparents who live out in Colorado, they suddenly needed 24-hour care. Well, my grandmother did. And that was not something that my family had ever navigated before. My great-grandmother had a caregiver, but it was just like two kind of old ladies banging around together, somehow we didn't know which one of them was nuttier. So we didn't have a lot of experience with like having caregivers in the home and having to manage them and that sort of thing. And my mother and her two sisters lived out in Colorado near their parents. And so it fell on them to try to figure out 24-hour home care. And when I was having my little kind of midlife crisis, how am I going to reinvent myself time? That was happening for my mother out in Colorado with her parents. And so it was kind of watching her figure that out. They called in some other agencies like Right at Home to come in and provide the care. And so therefore home care was part of the family conversation, right? And it just so happened that my mother was friends with a Right at Home franchisee in Missouri. And she said, you should talk to Barb. And so I did. And it felt like something I wanted to look into, because I'd spent so many years of my life taking care of people, nurturing children and then and their friends. And you have all of these really intimate relationships with people, as kind of a part of that. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to find in this next phase of my life that was going to feel really meaningful to me and kind of fill my heart, right? So I talked to the Right at Home franchise owner, and when she was explaining to me what the business was and what it had meant to her, it felt like a really good direction to go in. And so we just kind of looked into it. And now here I am. Today's my 9-year anniversary.
That's great. So you take this call. Your mom has a friend who owns Right at Home. Are you taking that call as an emotional connection on how do I navigate handling aging grandparents? Or are you at that point, are you taking it as like just a life coach call? Or are you taking it as I may want to be in business for myself? What was the reason you took that call in the first place?
You know what? I took that call because I was trying to figure out how to reinvent myself. I wasn't really sure how to do that. I had been having these really conflicting conversations with myself about how am I going to position myself to a potential employer? How am I going to show my value? 18, 19 years at home. If someone hasn't done that, it's difficult for them to see possibly what kind of value you can bring once you go back into the workforce. And I really struggled with what that was going to look like. And my husband in the nicest possible way, might have indicated that I'm a little bit of a control freak, maybe a little bossy. And he said, we could open a business. And so then that leaves every possible option in the whole world, right? And so how do you drill down on that? So honestly, I think that connection between my mother and her friend who happened to be a franchisee, that was just kind of like a first step down the path of maybe I can just open a business and be my own boss. And then I don't have to prove myself to anybody but me, right? Yeah. So honestly, I suppose I should have some sort of a really emotional story about how my journey started with Right at Home. But it's my reinvention of myself, and it's the next phase of my life. And I was able to find a business that made me feel like I was going to be doing good things and being able to impact other people's lives, because that's what I have been doing for so long. And I didn't want to lose that.
I would argue you that your story is in fact emotional. And frankly, for us, my business as an employer, like we love the reinvention story, because if we can ease someone back into the workforce, I would say caregiving for children might actually be the hardest job that exists in the world. So you're going, like, you had a significant career. It might not be in the definition of the way that human beings define career, but a stay-at-home mom is a significant career. And then for you to dance mentally with this reinvention, because you're looking at your own self-worth and you're debating it in a career sense, because you're almost discounting the fact that you did just have a hard career as the primary caregiver for your children. And so you're like battling inside. And so taking that call, what I love about it is obviously like you're seeing your grandparents go through it, which I think majority of people that get into senior care have some sort of emotional connection back to what the purpose of caregiving is and the importance of caregiving. And that if we go back a generation before, it was like, send people to the old people home. That's what you do when you're at your end of life. And it was so non-emotional and inconsiderate to people that have invested so much of their life into others. Like, now we've found the solution. So now you're riding into this. And I would call your story extremely significant. You get to 9 years now. Does it feel like it went super fast? Do you have time to pinch yourself? Are you proud of what you've created?
I am proud of what I've created. It has gone really quickly. I'll be honest with you. I didn't even realize today that it was my 9-year anniversary until one of my employees came in with balloons and flowers. Aww. And it was so precious of her to do that. And it's gone by so fast. I can't believe it's been 9 years, and I don't even know who I used to be. I don't know who the Jennifer Selden was who didn't know how to do home care, who didn't, live and breathe home care. I did reinvent myself. Mission accomplished, right? Because just suddenly here I am. And I will say that raising my children was the best thing I've ever done in my life, but this is pretty great.
I'm always curious. I mean, I have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old. They trekked to the office with me today. They're wandering around in here. I often think about, do they see me? Obviously, they see me as dad, but do they see me as an entrepreneur? Do they see the hard work, the blood, sweat, and tears that go into things? And I think that's yet to be decided. How do your kids look at what you've now accomplished in this reinvention of yourself? Do they say, "Mom's an entrepreneur"? Like, what's their reaction to what you've accomplished over 9 years?
Well, they haven't used the word entrepreneur, but I think they're proud of me. They say they're proud of me. Your kids are growing up seeing you do this work, and my kids didn't grow up seeing me do this work. So they kind of journeyed with me, right? They were old enough at the beginning of all of this to watch me navigate it. And I can remember there were there were a few nights when we'd get the kids picked up from school. My husband would bring them to the office, and we were all, they're working together, had a little assembly line to put, interview packets together or something, and they were in there and they were supporting me, and they were so excited. And I think I'm going to cry. I didn't expect this. I hope I've set an example for them as women that, quite frankly, you can have it all. You can do it all. I was able to quit working, stay home with my kids, and then go back into the workforce, and have another meaningful career. And I think that's really important for women, young women, to understand is you can do all of these things. There's time, and you should go do it. So I think I'm rambling because you asked me a really personal question I wasn't quite ready for my response to, but I think they're proud of me, and they tell me I'm a badass. You might have to bleep that out.
No, I love it.
But I am actually quite happy that they were in their teen years when I started this, so they could recognize it for what it was.
At what point were you able, another personal question, were you able to look in that mirror? Because obviously you're going through conflict on this reinvention of yourself, and who am I and what defines me, and you're making sure, and you just said it, I'm not going to be pigeonholed into one story. I'm going to go have it all, and I'm going to show that I can pivot and change and have things that I'm proud of and feel proud of. At what point did you give yourself permission to say, I did do this? Like, I do have the confidence. I am a great business leader. I can be a badass boss. Like, do you know, like, the moment where you gave yourself that permission to say, this is pretty neat?
I don't know that I had one moment, but I think I have lots of those moments. Yeah. And they come unexpectedly, and they typically come in those times when you really impact somebody in a positive way. And the thing about doing home care is we have an opportunity to be a part of somebody's life and death, right? Like, at a time when people are never going to forget us. And some of those opportunities are really more impactful than others. And sometimes those are the hardest ones to navigate too, but you do it and you get to the other side, and you get to curate this experience for this client and family. And when that really works, I think that's when I step back and I go, I did that. This is really great. That would not have happened without me and what I have built. And I'm so proud that I got to do, this specific thing. Does that make sense?
All right. I love that. One thing that I would say I struggle with mentally when thinking about your segment of business, at least for what I would struggle with, is the emotional side. Like, you almost have to de-emotion yourself from what we're talking about, which is some of the end of life care. And what's it like, as I'm thinking through the journey of our discussion today, like, I think about my parents, they're discussing the landing of the plane, not the reinvention. And so you're reinventing yourself into a business model that is deeply emotional. And I agree, it's such impactful on on what you're able to provide back to families and clients. But how do you personally balance that emotional side of what type of business you're working
in? Can you be more clear about what you're asking? Because I don't take emotion out of it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times it's the emotion and the compassion that leads to good business and great care.
Yeah.
And you can't let emotions drive all of your decision making. Otherwise, we wouldn't make any money and we'd give everything away for free because we love everybody and we just want to take care of them. But I think taking the emotion out of it would be a really bad idea.
Yeah, so you give yourself, your caregivers permission. Like, this can be an emotional thing. It's a hard thing to go through, but at the end of the day, we're providing a service that is deeply impactful to someone's life at the end of life.
Yeah. And from the employee standpoint, there's a reason there's a caregiver shortage, and that's because most people can't do it well. They really can't. They're either not willing to, or they're incapable of being good at it. And the people who really do caregiving well, they're also in it for the emotional paycheck, right? We talk about that a lot. It feels good to care for people. And so I caution anybody about just trying to be, too emotionally blocked off. It's okay to be sad when your client's unwell, and it's okay to cry with your client and their family, right? Because it's tough.
Tough.
It can be a tough thing to do.
I'm curious because 9 years ago, senior care, home care is not what it is today. I think it's continuously takes strong steps forward that hopefully our generation, next generation, like it is becoming a part of everyday life. If I go back to like when I first started working with Right at Home, 2000, probably 2005 or 6, it is unknown. Like, nobody understands, like, this is something that exists. So we've come a tremendous way over the last 20 years. On the caregiver front, you said there's a caregiver shortage. There's a lot of people that don't want to do it and a lot of people that can't do it. Are you seeing that as a career, as a job, improving too, or is there more work that has to be done to take the caregiving employee side to the next level?
Both.
Yeah.
I think it's improving a lot. Caregiving is a great option for people who not only want that emotional paycheck, but who needs flexibility, right? It's a great option for those people who want to stay home with their kids and maybe flex their schedules, with a spouse. And so somebody stays home with the kids and somebody goes to work and vice versa. I think a lot of people can be called to the job because what we get to do and the ways that we get to help, but also how it benefits them. So I think that caregiving as a career is going to continue to grow. I hope it's going to continue to grow. But it's our responsibility as employers to equip them and prepare them and give them all the tools necessary, because I'm thinking about when I started my business in 2016, I had a lot of calls for companion caregiving. My mom needs a companion. She wants somebody to spend time with, right? And that takes a special person with a special personality. But now people are waiting longer before they call for help. So we're seeing that our clients are more acute. They need more than just companionship. So we have to be able to take people who want to be a caregiver, bring them in, give them the knowledge, give them the skills, and give them the support and the continuing education to continue to grow in that career. Because if your only skill set is to be a companion and a friend to an elderly person, you're limited, right? So we pull people in and we grow them and we open up more opportunities for them, which, helps their self-esteem. It helps their bank account. It helps them take care of their children and put gas in their car and pay their rent. And I think that caregiving as a career is it's really important, and more people are going to see that.
I want to go back to reinvention. I think about my own approach to everyday business and everyday life. I certainly had to go through a reinvention, a different one than what you talked about when I decided to start a business and quit a job and make this decision. But I'm constantly challenging myself in my head to reinvent, to improve. I would imagine you're similar. Like every day you're reinventing and thinking about what's next. So how is the reinvention going for you in your own head every day? And what's the dream for the business as a next step?
Well, I mean, I'd say every day I wake up a little bit scared, right? You have to be on your toes.
Right. Right.
I mean, you own your business too, right? So, the reinvention is great. It's the great thing about being part of the Right at Home franchise system is that Right at Home as a franchisor is always looking for ways to help us pivot as we need to, right? They're always identifying new opportunities, new vendors that we can align with for improving the caregiver journey or improving the client experience and ways to support us as business owners, right? So we have an opportunity to always be reinventing, right? Always adding new things to the business with the support of Right at Home as a franchisor. I think, my vision for my business is, well, let me stop. Because what I thought I was doing when I opened Right at Home was I was going to open this company that cares for old people. We're going to help people in their last days. What I didn't realize and what I didn't realize was going to be so important to me is I give people jobs. I get to give people really meaningful work. I get to support people who are trying to take care of their own families or reinvent themselves. And so part of my vision for my company is just to continue to build out our culture. Our it sounds ridiculous, but we really do have a work family. We're very close to any of our employees who want to be. Some people just want to go to work, get a paycheck, and they don't want to hear from us. But there are very few of them. Most of them, come to us as part of their work family. And I want to grow that. I'd like to be able to maybe have a bit of a scholarship fund to help people go to college or help their kids go to college. I'd really like to support the caregivers more than we're able to right now. Financial education for our staff, I would love to be able to do for them, support their kids when they're trying to start careers or join the service. It's just, we want to lean into our employees more because honestly, you don't have a business without them anyway. So it makes good business sense, but more important than that is about being a good person and taking care of the people who are taking care of our people. Because so many of our caregivers don't have anybody caring for them. And we can do that. And I want to be able to flesh that out. And of course, continue giving great care to our clients.
I think that's the magic of our conversation. Like if we go from start to end, like it's when you take care of people, when you do the right thing, and you happen to be in business, there's good results that come out of that. And oftentimes I think too many businesses look at staff as widgets, not as partners, or how do we help them progress in their careers, or how do we translate meaning and purpose back to them as well? And I think you having a pulse on that, which probably goes back to watching your grandparents get care, talking to your mom's friend, reinventing yourself into this, transforming your viewpoint of I'm going to take care of old people to, wow, I get to take care of people, to now 9 years later, you've built something spectacular. And I think that's something that you should be proud of. And I love this conversation. I told you at the beginning of this, I said, I knew I was going to love this conversation. I think it's been
just wonderful. Like a big emotional thing, I guess, that I didn't realize. But I think when you get the opportunity to do really good work, you can't help but be emotional about it. Everybody's grateful. I'm grateful that I have the opportunity. I live in this country and I, as a woman, can own my own business. My employees are grateful for their jobs. Our clients are grateful for the care. Our families are grateful for the respite and support. It's really amazing.
And the impact just continues to compound. And I think like if I go back to the beginning of, again, me working with Right at Home to where it is now, and it's almost impossible to see it, but the compound effect that has happened over the last 20 years has been just spectacular. That it definitely goes into the service lines, but it goes into giving people the opportunity to own their own business and the support around them. You talked about Right at Home's there to help us pivot when we need to pivot. Like all the good continues to boil up to the top, which leads us to nine years later as you're celebrating your anniversary to do this. So,
but
Jen,
you know, that's a lot of why I decided to go with Right at Home when I started looking into it. And then I went out to Omaha for the Discovery Days. I mean, my experience there was just, it was really incredible. I felt like everyone cared about my experience. And that feeling has never left me. You know, I think you could ask some franchisees how they feel about, say, royalty fees or, you know, the brand fund. But I don't mind sending that back to Right at Home because honestly, they treat us franchise owners as if they work for us. Our corporate office is there to support us. They take that money and they build a system around us and they just give it right back. So my experience from start to finish with Right at Home and the culture at the corporate team is why I bought in at all, but it permeates throughout the system from franchisee to franchisee and all the support that's in place. It's incredible.
Love it. I mean, that is a spectacular close. I'm grateful that this worked out. I'm grateful that you gave me some of your time. I love hearing these stories, and I think it's you deserve to continue to pat yourself on the back. It's such a cool achievement to get to the level that you've gotten to in this next stage of your career. And thank you for sharing some of your story with us today.
Thank you for talking to me. I've enjoyed it.
Of course. For Jen, I'm Nick. This was another episode of Meet the Z. Take care.